You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, join the party, subscribe to the fastest growing Rams YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. Do some NFL radio for Westwood One. You also do Dodgers Nation, Locked On Rams. And, of course, I'm always joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host. He just completed his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we've got the outlook for the Rams off-season. How many draft picks do they have? Who are the dead cap hits? What their free agents look like? But we're going to also talk about Matthew Stafford, who played through a pretty serious injury the last couple of weeks of the season. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. All right, Travis. So we learned from, of course, one of the biggest sources in Rams football, Kelly Stafford's podcast, that Matthew Stafford was playing with cracked ribs against the 49ers in Week 15. He aggravated the injury against the Eagles on Sunday and acknowledged after the game that he had been dealing with a rib injury for some time. So, hey, we know Matthew Stafford's tough, but he still went out there and he still looked like an elite quarterback even through this injury.
Yeah, I think this is a really good example and good data as to why you want to do everything you can to try to make sure that he's back, because I think your quarterback needs to be, if not the toughest guy on your team, at least needs to be on the list of toughest guys on your team. And I think that he qualifies as that. I think that, guys are always going to have stuff that they're dealing with. Cracked ribs as a quarterback, I can't imagine what that's like. And you saw on that sneak early in the game against Philadelphia where he took a pretty good shot down near about the 10-yard line or so, and he was wincing and was not in a good place. You could tell he was in a great deal of pain, but he still found a way to be a really good player on that particular day. So, yeah, I mean, it's just another brick in the wall for me, D-Mac, about why this guy's so important and what you're doing moving forward, because he's incredibly experienced. He has that arm skill that we've talked about for years now, and he's just tough. And when your quarterback's tough like that, it's going to send a message to the rest of the team that if the quarterback's willing to take those hits and deal with that bump and deal with that pain, then everybody else is going to fall in line behind him.
Absolutely. And me personally, I wouldn't be able to play Madden with a cracked rib, let alone a playoff game. And one thing I think is cool, too, is how do role players, quote unquote, talk about the stars of the team? I think that goes a long way to really explaining the culture of that team. I like what Alec Jackson, he put on his Instagram. He kind of quoted the story about Matthew Stafford and the cracked rib. He said, "I wouldn't want to block for anyone else." Put a little heart emoji. That's kind of nice to see. But we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about this offseason. And we're going to have a lot of episodes about the offseason. So we're going to go in depth and we're going to tell you which free agents we think the Rams should sign, which pending free agents they should bring back. But it's going to be kind of a quick hitter show just to give you a big zoomed out overview of what the offseason could look like. And we're going to start with the pending free agents. Now, a lot of pending free agents for the Rams, but we'll start with the offensive line. You got Joe Noteboom, you got Alec Jackson, Demarcus Robinson. He made 17 starts for the team. Jimmy Garoppolo. So we'll start with the offensive side right there. For me, the one that stands out, I would definitely say, look, Jimmy Garoppolo looked pretty solid as a backup quarterback. This Rams team has lived through really poor backup quarterback play. And look, if he's comfortable here and they're comfortable paying him something that's not ridiculous, and there's not a team out there trying to make him like a Baker Mayfield, so to speak, which is you take a star that goes with backup and give him starters money. I think he's more along the lines of what Carson Wentz kind of got with the Chiefs, but maybe a little less.
Yeah, real quick before we get to Jimmy Garoppolo, I do want to talk about him, but going back to what you mentioned about Jackson and saying block for Stafford real quick, it just I think that's a great example. Like, just Just juxtapose that with what was coming out of New York with Aaron Rodgers. Juxtapose that, you got older quarterbacks that have been around the league 100 ways and won a bunch of games, and both of these guys are Super Bowl champions, and both of these guys end up in the Hall of Fame, I believe. But the impact in leadership between one guy, Matthew Stafford, and the absolute lack of that in the other guy, in Aaron Rodgers. So not only getting a great quarterback, but you're getting a great culture builder as well in Matthew Stafford. So I just wanted to make sure to throw that in there as well. Jimmy Garoppolo should be back on this team next year. I think the only way that he's not is what you said, which is if somebody that's desperate for quarterback help comes in and makes him an offer that he can't say no to, that offers to pay him like a starting quarterback in this league. If that happens, then he's probably down the road. But I said this when the Rams signed him. I still believe it. I didn't see anything in that Seattle game where he played the entire game that changed my mind. Jimmy Garoppolo is the best possible version of a backup quarterback in this league. Somebody that has started before, somebody that has won before, somebody that's a veteran, somebody that's going to keep the offense running the way that you hope to. Is he a great starting quarterback in this league? No. Is he the best that you could hope for to have standing there waiting to come in a pinch? I think that he probably is. That is the high watermark of backup quarterbacks, and I hope that he's back.
Absolutely. When you look at moving forward with Matthew Stafford, even though I don't know if you saw Nick Wright's proposed trade that was kind of so insane, I don't even want to talk about. Maybe we will.
Yeah, just quickly, no. Go ahead.
I'm about to say,
yeah,
didn't deserve any airtime here. But considering his age, though, and the fact that you want him at his best and his healthiest in the postseason, having someone that is reliable and dependable like a Jimmy Garoppolo that can pick up some starts in the regular season. Let's say if the Rams get off to a better start and the roster is a little more experienced and you're kind of feeling better about the way you can, I don't want to use the term, it kind of makes me cringe every time, load manage. I'm not saying that, but just to have that insurance of someone that's dependable like Jimmy Garoppolo, they could go a long way to pretty much assuring that you're going to get the healthiest version of Matthew Stafford in the playoffs. Now, some other free agents of note: Tutu Atwell, Christian Roseboom, John Johnson, Hunter Long. Start with Tutu Atwell. And, of course, we'll talk about if we want to bring it back or not.
Bye. See ya. Thank you for your service. Take care. Enjoy the road. Good luck in Houston or wherever it is you go next. Thank you. Bye. Adios.
So he doesn't need to get an Uber. Travis Rogers is going to drive him to the airport and pack his bags for him.
Yeah. Look, I'm not trying to pile on the guy, but he's been here a long time. He hasn't impacted this team. Thank you for your service. Good luck in your next stop. Bye.
And a team-friendly deal. I mean, but we'll but we also got
this is one of those things that we've seen. He's made some plays. Great. He's been here 4 years. Tell me the Tutu Atwell game. Tell me the Tutu Atwell play. Yeah, he gets a pass interference occasionally down the field. He has had a catch here or there, but he has never impacted this team in a meaningful way. Week to week to week, season to season to season. He's just not that. I think you can do better than Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly we'll talk about coming up next as far as their needs. But I do think that wide receiver is an area where the Rams have been kind of sneaky looking around the league for that impact guy. Yeah. And I think this is the offseason they upgrade that position. But we're going to talk about some of those needs and some more of these free agents. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule, that certainly can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider, making getting help that you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is pretty simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within just 48 hours, and it's very convenient. You can have a session with your therapist from the comfort of your home. You can even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and most insured members, there is a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. And as a listener of this podcast, you're going to get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and you use the promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL and enter the promo code SPACE80 80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for this podcast. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNFL, promo code SPACE80.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those every listeners out there that watch and listen to every single episode during the season. And I know we'll watch and listen to every single episode in the offseason as well. Now is a great time to join the Every Listeners Club and experience the journey of Rams football. And a lot of it starts in the offseason. But Travis, picking it up on some of these pending free agents, and we'll talk about some of these needs that they're going to have. You look at the rest of the guys, John Johnson III, Christian Roseboom, Hunter Long, Akello Witherspoon, Connor McDermott, Laurel Murchison, Tyler Johnson, Troy Reeder, Neville Gallimore, who definitely had some impressive moments, Bobby Brown, Ronnie Rivers, Jake Hummel, and Dylan McMahon. I think some of those guys are interesting. I mean, Ronnie Rivers, definitely capable backup running back. Tyler Johnson, sure-handed moments, but you can find him around the league. Akello Witherspoon is one that just kind of hangs around, though, for the Rams, it feels like.
Yeah, it's interesting that when they re-signed him this season, when they basically were in a pinch and they needed somebody that could at least just kind of hold their own, they went out and got Akello Witherspoon. And Akello Witherspoon was not on anybody else's roster. He was a free agent that was not signed during the offseason. And obviously there was some familiarity with this team and what they were trying to get done. And it felt to me, D-Mac, like Witherspoon was going to be like a placeholder that just let's do this until we can figure out to do something better. Fact of the matter was he was really good for the Rams this year. He did a good job. And I think if you can find a way to bring him back on a deal that is team friendly, that, then you try to do that. Now, I don't know if you go out of your way to give him a long-term deal, high dollars. I don't think that's going to happen clearly, but I think he's played his way from somebody that is just good enough to be here for the time being, and you're constantly looking to upgrade that position to somebody that you feel pretty good about having on your defense. He's not a number one corner, but that's okay. You got to have other guys, and he made plays, and he took the other team's number one receiver a handful of times, and I was very impressed with what he did. And if there's a way to bring him back, I would be for it.
For sure. I think he's someone that will be in play depending on the other guys they pursue or that they draft, knowing that he has had success with this organization. No other teams really picked him up when he was a free agent in this offseason. So he's someone that's just there for you. So I wouldn't rule out him being back with the Rams, but kind of shifting gears just to
You know what he is, too, just to kind of interject real quick, is and you need guys like this. He's a pro. You know what I mean? Like he's a professional football player that you could put him in there, and he's a consistent professional football player. Maybe he's not going to throw you an A+ every once in a while, but he's not going to give you a D either. He's going to give you a pretty decent, game week to week to week. And if a coach can count on you to be consistent, they can use you. They can find a way to give you the help that you need to get you to that next level. And I think that's what he is. I think he's a pro, and I hope he's back.
Absolutely. I mean, I think with him, it's his floor is high. The ceiling isn't that high, but sometimes he'll just make plays that will be the same plays that elite cornerback will make. I mean, him saving the game against the Cardinals with that interception was one of the best moments of the season. He just kind of has that knack to come up big in a big spot. But I do think, and we'll kind of start there, the cornerback position, it's not the top of the list, but it's certainly a position that the Rams could upgrade. I mean, Darius Williams is still under contract. Kobe Durant is still under contract. Akello Witherspoon, a pending free agent. I do think that is an area that they'll explore this offseason. And also wide receiver. So wide receiver is a big one for me. I mean, Cooper Kupp's, his future is very unclear at this point. We saw Torrey Holt wants to see him finish his career with the Rams, but Torrey Holt is not Les Snead and Sean McVay and this Rams organization. And you also have Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, they're pending free agents. Bottom line, the Rams need to upgrade that position to, one, get the most out of Puka Nacua, and two, get the most out of Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, and so a couple of things here. Number one, I love what you said about the corner. I don't know if it's at the top of the list. I don't know if the Rams spend their first round draft pick on that, but it's on the list. And if they did find a corner that they loved, what is it, 26? I think they're drafting. That would not be something that make me go, what the heck are they doing? I think that it's not number one, but it might be number two. So we'll see how that plays out. The wide receiver thing that you're talking about, I think you're spot on. They need to get a lot better there. I think that you're going to start to see a transition. And this is why I don't love Tutu, not to pound on him, but Tutu does one thing, right? He's fast. He gets down the field. And I think the Rams are a lot like the Dodgers in this situation. They like guys that can do multiple things. They like guys that can fill multiple roles. If you just do one thing, you better do that one thing at an incredibly high level, at an elite level. Well, Atwell's not that. So let's find somebody that does some things that are a little bit more multiple. So I think you're right. I think that when you look at the Rams wide receivers that have been the most successful here, they're guys that do a lot of things. Cooper Kupp is the ultimate example of that. Puka Nacua certainly falls into that category. Another Ram great wide receiver in the Sean McVay era that did a whole bunch of different things was Robert Woods. He was not just, when they had those guys that could play all three positions, they were really tough to deal with. And I think that's what you're looking for. You're looking for another guy that can do multiple things and not a guy that does one thing at an average level and maybe even not even quite at that.
For sure. There's no doubt about that. I think that it's an area that, like I said on yesterday's show, they want those names, but also that though they don't want the names that they know they still have a productive future in, right? Mike Evans might be a guy that you said off season. Yeah, has Mike Evans still got a lot left in the tank? You saw the season he had. He clearly did. So the Rams were right and to have that interest in him. Rome Odunze has made plays for the Bears that said, oh, this guy has that potential that everyone thought so highly of him. So yeah, I definitely trust the Rams as far as their evaluation of receivers. We look no further than Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, right? But a big one that I think is really going to go a long way to determining the future of this Rams team is going to be the left tackle spot. Alec Jackson, if he leaves in free agency, they're going to need to fill that position. Rob Havenstein, he's someone that he's a stalwart. He's been a rock, but he's not getting any younger at the right tackle position. It's really interesting. Alec Jackson, a 78.4 grade on PFF. That was 18th out of 81 tackles this season. He's really, if you look at lists of top tackles available, he's really towards the top, and he's still really young at 27. So that's a decision they're going to have to make. Is he of the caliber of a Andrew Whitworth? Orlando Pace, of course, is in the conversation for best tackles of all time. And clearly a top 5 tackle. There's no doubt about that in that class. But that's going to be an area where, hey, the Rams know the blueprint to a Super Bowl, an elite left tackle usually leads to a Super Bowl for this organization. If you look at the history books,
it's the second most important thing on your football team. You got your quarterback's number one and your offensive line is number two. If either of those two things aren't good, that's a wrap. We saw what they had with Matthew Stafford the year after they won the Super Bowl when the line went bad. Team was terrible. You cannot overcome a bad offensive line. And like you said, Alec Jackson was good for this team. Maybe he's not a Hall of Famer. He's not, but that's okay. You don't have to be a Hall of Famer to be really good. And he was really good. There is, I think, a great deal of value in consistency from at that particular position one year to the next. You mentioned that Rob Havenstein is getting to the point where, he was a St. Louis Ram. So that's how long he's been in the league. That not that he's going anywhere, but you at least have to start thinking in those terms of being prepared. He missed a little bit of time this year with some injuries. So I think Jackson is right near the top of the list of guys that you got to bring back. And I think, I don't know if you pay him like all pro type of money, but you're going to need to pay him a little bit because a quality starting left tackle in this league are not free. And you got away with a guy that was virtually free with a long time because he's an undrafted player. You kind of developed him from your own squad, and he's developed into a really good NFL player. And I think he's got to stay. I'd like to see him back.
And that's the good thing, too, is that they know everything about the dude. They know everything about him from a locker room standpoint, a practice in the building standpoint. They know how he performs. They have all the tape. So if they're going to pay Alec Jackson, you have to feel good about it as a fan, knowing that it's not something that they're second guessing, that they would only pay him if they felt that he was worth and he could provide value at that contract. Now, coming up next, though, we're going to talk about the biggest need for the Rams on defense. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. How about this? We're down to 3 NFL games. That's hard to believe. The season goes by fast, so make sure that you enjoy these final 3 at best. And right now, new customers, if you're new to FanDuel, you can bet $5 and you're going to get $300 in bonus bets if you win that first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. You want to do it on, obviously the Super Bowl. You want to do it in the NBA, Major League Baseball is right around the corner. There's all sorts of things you can do with that FanDuel app. It is super easy to navigate and the variety of bets to keep every game exciting, right? So plus, when you win, boom, money. Paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. So whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add a little excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel's got you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Okay, Travis, so the biggest need on the defensive side of the football, without any shadow of doubt, is they need to upgrade the inside linebacker position. They absolutely need a little more quality there. Christian Rozeboom, a valiant effort, but that definitely was an area. You go back and look at the defense that overperformed with Chris Shula in year 1. I just want to see what they would look like with a more competent inside linebacker at that position group.
Okay, so this is interesting. Everything that you said, I think, is probably right, but I think there's a huge however. Number one, Omar Speights was pretty good. That again, this is what they do: an undrafted player that they turned into at worst an NFL player, right? A guy that you could put out there and at least have a fighting chance. He was a rookie. He will be better in year 2 than he was in year 1. That's number one. Number 2, this is a position that they have traditionally not spent money on. They've gone after a inside linebacker one time in the Sean McVay era. It was Bobby Wagner, and it was 1 year, and they moved on from it. This is just a place where whether you go back to Corey Littleton, there are just so many examples of them kind of going through, we'll use the guy that we have and we're going to spend our resources elsewhere. They clearly have emphasized the defensive line, right, the front. They may need to make some work in the back end at corner. But that linebacker position is just not something that they've put a great deal of emphasis on in the Sean McVay era. We'll see. I agree with you. They could be better there, and I think that it would help the team, but that's just not what they've traditionally done. I'm really curious to see. Now, Rozeboom, I don't know if you go out of your way to keep him. I think that you can upgrade that specifically with something else that probably isn't terribly expensive. Maybe you address it in the draft, but I just don't think that's going to be an area of emphasis for them simply because it never has been.
That's 100% true. There's no doubting that. The fact that it's less of an importance in Chris Shula's defense for sure. And Omar Speights is someone, just look at his last game. The Eagles, 7 tackles, tackle for loss. He forced that fumble on Jalen Hurts. I love his upside, the athleticism that he brings in. There was so much hype surrounding him during the preseason, and I think you saw the flashes, and that's what you want to see in year 1. Yep. But they're just the way that if they want to scheme from every single angle, you can trust that for sure, or you can add more depth at position. I'd rather have Omar Speights continue to grow with more depth around him, where you're not just forcing him into a role where he has to be the guy that you're hoping that Christian Rozeboom would have been this season. So I definitely think, though, you're right, though. I would never expect the Rams to get a big ticket inside linebacker. That's just not how they spend their money. They focus on finding those high upside guys at those positions, either through just they kind of fall in your lap, shopping on the dollar menu type stuff.
Yep.
Or you go out there. We've seen them have success with undrafted free agents in the draft. So that's another area where you can kind of pinpoint those needs, especially because they're also falling in the draft as well. And now Last one I want to talk about.
Just as long as we're on the same page that we both agree that the dollar menu is a wonderful place to go shopping. The dollar menu is always good because that's where the cheeseburger lives, and that's always a great decision.
Dollar menu is solid, depending on the time of day. If it's like, if you go to McDonald's at 1 o'clock, you better get like a Big Mac, supersize it. But if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you need more variety and you're taking 2 bites and throwing it, that's kind of where I'm at with the dollar menu for sure. And yeah, no, trust me, the dollar menu goes pretty hard for sure. I'm not gonna lie.
Good. As long as I'm not here for any dollar menu slander. I'm team dollar menu. I just wanted to make sure we're good.
Yeah, for sure. No, 100%. I mean, come on now. But yeah, last one definitely has to be the tight end position. I mean, you look at where the Rams are at. Higbee, massive part of the offense when he came back. I mean, clearly someone that Matthew Stafford is comfortable going towards, but you need a tight end that can stretch the field. A little more vertical tight end. Colby Parkinson had touchdown last game, but he clearly was not the right guy to spend to commit $22 million to potentially. And that's just a position where I really want to see that level of dynamic tight end with a Matthew Stafford that we just haven't seen. And you just want to be able to push the ball down the field with a little more ease.
Yeah, I go back and forth on this one. When Tyler Higbee was here towards the end of the year, the offense was a lot better. And he clearly was a player that Matthew Stafford and McVay, prioritized. That they threw him the football. So I think, obviously, if you're kind of triaging who you got to have back from next year, Stafford's at the top of the list. I think Higbee might be third behind Jackson, Alaric Jackson. I hope he's back, but obviously, there's an injury history there. He's an older player. It's a physical position. I know that what they ask their tight ends to do in that offense is extremely complicated and extremely difficult. So bringing in new blood is always a challenge. Higbee's been here for a long time. I agree with you. I still think this is the one piece in the McVay offense that we've never seen in full flower. We've seen the quarterback. We've seen the wideouts. We've seen the running back and Todd Gurley. We've seen it look terrific at all of these places except for tight end. But the best version we've seen is Tyler Higbee. But there's a lot of questions about him, all of them health related, age related. He's a good player. My radio co-host DeMarco Farr said this the other day, and when he said it, I went what? No. And then I started to think about it, and I think it's true. Is Tyler Higbee the best tight end in Rams history? He might be.
Oh, he is for sure.
Yeah, and you don't think of him quite like that until you stop and really kind of give it some thought. And I hope they can find a way to bring him back because I think he's very, very useful. But I also don't think that it's at the Matthew Stafford or Alaric Jackson where you have to bring him back. I'm hopeful. But if they didn't, I could kind of get to see why they didn't.
I think so too. I just think that knowing what they did last year, clearly they wanted to add another red zone threat, and that's kind of one of the very rare whiffs that we've seen in recent years with this Rams organization and Colby Parkinson. So we'll see if it's an area that they address in other ways. But kind of getting back to that dollar menu thing. I mean, everyone really loves the dollar menu at Del Taco.
Yeah. I do too.
Are you a Del Taco over Taco Bell, dude? Please tell me not.
Oh yeah.
Oh come on.
Yeah.
I tried was it the Crunch Tata?
No. Okay, so here's the thing.
No, this is I don't buy it. I don't like this.
So I like both, but I prefer Del Taco, and here's why. I think that their Mexican items, right? Their burritos and tacos are relatively, it's a draw. I think they're about the same. The big game changer for Del Taco is you can get those crinkle cut fries at Del Taco. That's why it puts them over the top. I think that Del Taco has the second best fries behind McDonald's. They're always super salty. The crinkle cut allows you to get more of your stuff on it. I'm a huge Del Taco guy.
Have you tried the nacho fries at Taco Bell? You could make they're the only fries in the industry that McDonald's is like, holy crap. Like Ronald McDonald is at the Taco Bell factory trying to get the recipe. The nacho, first of all, those crinkle fries are like some Vaughn's frozen fries.
Love them.
Respectfully, I've had a lot of people try to talk me into the Del Taco over Taco Bell hype. I don't buy it, man. I really don't.
I'll put it to you this way. I don't know if I've ever eaten at a Taco Bell other than from midnight to 2 a.m. And I have eaten at Del Taco when the sun is up and my mind has not been altered. That is what I can tell you the difference is.
I just think Taco Bell's innovative, man. The nacho, the shells, the big box menu. I will say the Del Taco kind of leaves you in a better place 4 hours after, though. I will give it that. But we'll continue the dollar menu debate. Bring back the $1 McChickens at McDonald's.
Yeah.
I will say too, this is not sponsored by McDonald's, but download the McDonald's app so you can get the fries for $1, the large drink for $1. So that's kind of the key.
Okay,
it feels weird. My wife's like, "Why do you have a McDonald's app?" I'm like, you know why.
I'm glad we ended on something that you and I can agree on. That app is a revelation. Yes.
Absolute game changer. McDonald's sponsored the show, man. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And you can also, there you go, Travis got the app. Let us know down below, Del Taco or Taco Bell. Let us know down below, and make sure you have that McDonald's app on your phone. That's going to do it. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.